can't believe it. I'm on your podcast. This is amazing.
We're just going to give it a few seconds to give it a baseline. Welcome back to the Wild Business Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Dana Gottiner, and you're here for episode 200.
Dana, thank you so much. Welcome back to the. Hey, can you imagine if I did that the entire time? Welcome back to the Wild Business Growth Podcast, a very, very special episode 200 edition. I am your host, Max Branstetter, founder and podcast producer at MaxPodcasting. And you can hit me up at max@maxpodcasting.com to save time with your high-quality podcast. This is the big 200, episode 200. I can't believe we made it past episode 1. So here we are. It's we're celebrating 199 bonus ones on top of that. But wow, where to start? I'm so unprepared. Let me get out my note card. Thank you so much, all of you, wild listeners, everyone listening to this podcast. None of this would be possible without you. And I tend to get a little bit corny and emotional at times, mostly corny. It's hard to put into words what this podcast means and everything that it's opened doors for and made possible. And just a few quick examples. I mean, over the course of the past 100 episodes, I've literally launched a podcast production business because of this podcast. I've reconnected with people from all around the world that one, never thought I'd be able to, even speak to. Two, in some cases, reconnecting with old friends. We featured guests from New York to London to Zimbabwe. And from a listener standpoint, I mean, the feedback and what I hear from you guys and how much the community has grown, what it's meant to keep this baby growing and just get more and more wild, crazy, cool entrepreneurs and even people that you grow up seeing on TV or you use their brands every day. Like it's podcasting is a pretty crazy thing, and you have made this all possible. And so this is an episode where I'm already going on too long, but this is a beast of an episode, and it might be intimidating when you see how long the episode is, but I think you'll enjoy it quite a bit. The way this episode works is it's focused on the past 100/99 episodes. Similar to the episode 100 special, it's organized into batches of a few different guests at a time. And so most of the time we'll start with a returning guest who's back for a special second interview update, and then we'll go into some highlights, best of moments from other guests, as well as, of course, bloopers, impressions, music, quirky things that are worth revisiting or maybe have never even been released before. I'll chime in from time to time along the way to keep things moving along. Because this episode is so crazy, wildly long, there is a halftime break in the middle. So I'll give you a heads up when it's that. If you want to pause, come back, listen to the second half at another time. Speaking of halftime, there will also be a special announcement of something very exciting that is launching very, very soon. So stay tuned for that. I'll talk about it more in detail at the end of this episode as well. So before I get too exhausted from this one very, very long sentence, I am super excited to introduce the first batch of guests for this episode 200 special. We'll kick it off with Addie Gundry from Pluie, who is back to talk about all the growth and distribution wins. Then we'll flash back to Willard Wiggin, the world's greatest micro sculptor, talking about some of his motivation from his mom to keep making things smaller. And finally, Scott Hansen, the man from NFL Red Zone, doing what he does on NFL Red Zone. It is the big La 200 Bowski. Enjoy the show. Oh shit, was I recording? Alrighty, we are back, Pluie back, with a special episode 200 reunion with Addie Gundry. Pluie, the world's first self-sanitizing, baby-changing, diaper-changing I forgot the word. Table. How could I forget that? Addie, thank you so much for joining, coming back on. How you doing today?
I'm good. And thank you. And that's kind of the problem, that word table. And that's what we're trying to change. We are changing the table because why would you want to change your child on a rock hard piece of plastic table in public restrooms? So we are changing it. And that's why maybe you stumbled, because it's confusing.
It is. It is. There's so much confusion with this problem historically. And speaking of confusion, back in the original interview, so you came on back in episode 169. And that was back in November 2021. And I was confused. I didn't even know what the term blowout meant at the time in the sense of a diaper. So you educated me a lot on that and the French language and the culinary world as well as culinary words. It's I think at the time we kind of focused on the origin story of Pluie and how you came up with this and like tweaks to the product. But fast forward now, and like I feel like since we spoke, your distribution in places that you can actually find Pluie in the wild has kind of taken off to the next level. Can you speak to that a little bit about what's helped to get into more accounts?
Yeah, great question. So last year, we really focused on making sure we had the perfect product and brand awareness, because with a product this large, with tooling, with manufacturing, we wanted to ensure that every part of it was the way we wanted it before we started scaling the business. And so we launched in February, March of 2021. And then we, in some sense, paused so we could make some iterations. We could learn from seeing our product in the world. And that's really important. I think in startup culture, everyone's rushed to go, 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 which trust me when I say we are go, go, going. But we really were intentional with, hey, let's learn from this instead of just rushing to the market, because we want to manufacture the best possible product. And so we were able to transition to a global contract manufacturer called Sanmina. It's a $7 billion CM, which is huge for us. We can show our customers that we can scale, because what we were focusing on was building those relationships with large national accounts like CVS and Costco and Simon Property Group. And you better believe questions they ask is, well, what if we want 1,000? Can you even make them? And so that was really important for us in 2021. And we were really strategic about it. And while also then gaining that brand awareness. And we were recognized by Time as one of the best inventions in 2021. Fast Company named us a world-changing idea. And then Inc. magazine named me one of the top female founders to watch this year. So really exciting year, and have a lot to show for it now, because we have 10 large national accounts that we have POs from, we're piloting with. And it's really exciting, because I've always believed in the land and expand strategy, and that if we have these thought leaders like Simon Property Group, like Westfield, Costco, Old Navy, these companies that say, hey, look what we're doing to better the guest experience, especially for the young and vulnerable little ones, the rest kind of start to follow in that footprint. So very exciting for us now that we have 10 accounts. There's a couple I'm dying to share that I'm not sure if I'm allowed to yet, but you can imagine they're big box kind of type retailer.
Yeah, and you texted me off record, and whoo, those are pretty awesome. But you are also named by the Wild Business Growth Podcast as the best educator of the term blowout in the diaper sense. So I have to give you that's basically on par with the Time magazine front cover, basically. But it's super exciting about all the different accounts you're in. I mean, you listed off some of the names, like these are some of the biggest names in the retail space and beyond. And so far of the big accounts that you've won, what's one that you had to like pinch yourself of like, oh my God, this okay, we've kind of made it to a level if we're getting in these doors?
One of the most exciting for me and felt so personal and meaningful was Legoland and Peppa Pig theme park.
Oh yeah. You're bringing a tear to my mom's eye, because both her eyes actually, because she's a huge Peppa Pig fan.
Oh, and it for me as a mom, right? This business is so personal. Cooper was the inspiration for it. Claire helped me bring it to life when we were on maternity leave and raising. And I have 2 toddlers that watch toddler shows that my son loves this like Lego Ninjago, I don't even know, cartoon. Of course, my daughter loves Peppa Pig. And so having a large company like that, they're owned by Merlin Entertainment, to say, hey, look what we're doing. Again, we're creating a place where parents feel that health and safety is a priority, where we value guest experience. And so when a large company like that, who has a lot of babies, I mean, Peppa Pig theme park is very cool. If you don't know about it, it's the only theme park built for toddlers. So all of the rides are for kids ages, 2 to 4. It's literally, there's no other theme park like it. And so when we installed it was such a perfect fit. And it was one of these wild installations. I flew out there. We had to do it in the middle of the night because that happens often with places that are open during the day. But I think when it was a pinch me moment was I pushed really hard for it. They actually were opening the theme park. They already had changing tables installed. And I said, come on, like you guys want these, you need these, Pluie makes sense. And so they removed their brand new changing tables. I'm not even kidding, Max, 2 days before they opened. We were there for the soft press opening, the investor opening, and they put Pluie on the wall in the middle of the night. And that was just such a cool moment. I think it spoke to sort of optimism and persistence, 2 traits you really need as an entrepreneur. Seeing it there and, FaceTiming with my kids all alone in the Peppa Pig theme park, it was just like so surreal. Look what mom is doing. And it was a really pinch me moment. And then I was invited out there with my son Cooper and my daughter, but she's a little crazy and young and doesn't listen. So I brought my son, but we got to spend the day at the park for some press and media opportunities. He and I went in before it opened and basically had the theme park to himself. And I mean, again, like everything I do and am and want to be building this business is for our kids. And so like having my business so personally connected to them and having sales wins that they can kind of start to see is really a pinch me moment.
Now I have to ask, does the team at Peppa Pig theme park, is like every other word that comes out of their mouth
I will say there is a lot of snorting.
Thank God.
And it's so cute, but you hear all the music and the theme. And I feel like I was just always hearing like snorts throughout the theme park or something. So they did an amazing job and they really thought about everything. It's the first theme park to have sensory cues, for children with autism and things. It's handicap accessible. Like it's just a really magical, special place. It really is.
It is. Anything with Peppa, it takes it to the next level. That's super exciting. And then the other area of distribution that I'm really, really excited by, you're starting to get into professional sports ballparks and stadiums as well. What have you gotten into so far, and like how'd you break into that mold? Because that's obviously a huge, exciting market for you as well.
And again, back to sort of persistence. The one challenge we have is getting to the right people, right? How do you sell into large companies? How do you sell a B2B product to a stadium? Is it, do you talk to the facilities team members? Do you talk to operations? Do you talk to marketing and PR? And so a lot of the efforts is just who do you find within these organizations that say, hey, this is really neat and let's try this. And so the White Sox was another win for us that I literally got a phone call on my cell phone after they saw us on the local news, like, hey, we saw this and we want it. And I thought, oh my God, like when someone calls you and wants it after you spend months and months just like hounding people, it's pretty fun. So that was our first stadium. And that really helped put us on the map because people see stadiums as, it's a nice sort of validation of like, wow, they like this product, they did their due diligence. So it's a nice kind of feather in our cap. And then we now are in the San Diego Padres stadium, so Petco Park, which was just ranked the #1 stadium in the country. Very cool. As well as the Texas Rangers, so Globe Life Field. In both those stadiums, we're in the nursing mothers' rooms, as well as some club level suite areas. It's really been kind of word of mouth and just getting to the right people, hitting the pavement, I suppose.
Oh, I thought you were going to say knocking it out of the park. I thought I was all teed up for a baseball pun there, but we'll still give it to you. That's super exciting, and there's so many more stadiums that I'm sure are kind of next to be on the list as well. But Addie, so fun catching up and seeing and hearing all the exciting growth. And for listeners out there, where is the best place for people to like see pictures of Pluie in the wild and just capture all the excitement in the world of Pluie?
Yes, we want followers and fun. So please join us. We're on Instagram. It's Hello Pluie, as well as LinkedIn. And then our website is hellopluie.com. But that, we're just wanting more parents, more people, more fans, more enthusiasts in the restroom space, facilities, babies, blowouts, you name it, to follow along and help support us. We are moms behind this. We're women owned and operated, WBENC certified. We're a small startup going after a really big category and just need the love. So if you find this fun and interesting, please follow along, and we'll post lots of photos with us in public restrooms.
Perfect, and more Peppa Pig as well. So that's Pluie. Pluie is spelled Pluie. So there is the spelling bee for this special episode 200. Last thing, special episode 200, additional final thoughts, whatever you want, Addie. Send us off. You can even snort it if you want it. Go send us home here.
I don't think I've ever snorted on a podcast, but I might just have to. I think my final thought I'll say is we've had such a busy year, and the most exciting part is just that we've learned so much. And I'll say that, again, being an entrepreneur, there's so much you don't know. And if anyone out there is listening, I would just say, learning is so powerful, and the desire to want to learn is sometimes even more important than knowing something already. So don't be intimidated by what you don't know. It will all hopefully work out. And if not, you can just snort your way through life. That was bad. That was a bad snort.
Oh, that was fantastic.
So then I heard the door go slam, and then my mum came up the garden. Because my mum was angry, you see, because she'd come to collect me. I wasn't at school. She came up the garden. Then she could see the neighbors all looking and stuff, looking over the fence, and and then my mum was shouting at me, where you been? And then my neighbor says, oh, Mrs. Wigan, don't worry, I brought him home. So then they said, Mrs. Wigan, have you seen what your son's made? I could hear that. And what's happened? How come you wasn't at school? And she was so het up with me not being at school. She's concentrating on wanting to let me know what's going to happen to me for running away. But then all of a sudden, that diluted. And then the lady next door says, have a look. Look at that, Mrs. Wigan. Then my mum looked at it. My mum, like that. And then she kind of looked at me and then looked at what I'd done. And I held it in my hand like this. And she picked it up like that. She was looking at it. I thought she was going to throw it away. But she looked at it. She called me in the house. She put it on the table. And she looked at it like that and said, you make that? I said, yeah. And then she said to me, make them smaller and your name will get bigger.
Boy, the only time I usually close something out is at the end of the show, where we leave you with one more look at every touchdown from every game, presented by Amazon Prime.
Thank you, Addie. Thank you, Willard. Thank you, Scott. Scotty Too Hottie Hansen for the touchdowns on touchdowns on touchdowns on touchdowns. Now, let's get to returning guest Dave Heimbuch from Hydrant, who has been swimming with the Sharks, and a highlight from Brian Clayton and just the level he was willing to get to win McDonald's as one of his first clients. And then Laura Belgray, the famous and infamous copywriter, correcting me on a very simple word to spell. Alrighty, we are here for a very super special Hydrant special episode 200 reunion with Dave Heimbuch, founder of Hydrant, who's been pretty busy since we last spoke. Dave, welcome to episode 200. I think you've been up to a couple things since we last spoke, episode 142 back in April of 2021. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, Max. Thanks for having me again. I appreciate it.
Of course. And you're very lucky I let you back on, because last time you alluded to some dad jokes, and then you started to go through the dad joke, and then you basically couldn't remember it, but it was something about a pterodactyl. So here we are.
The best dad jokes for me just kind of come spur of the moment during a conversation with my kids. They're not the jokes that I have memorized, but they're just those that just come up spontaneously. So I think I froze last time.
It's an art. And if you do it right, it can get you on Shark Tank. So you Huge congratulations. Since we spoke, you have been on Shark Tank, which is really, really cool. Not only because, I mean, it's you on Shark Tank. Like, that's amazing. That's a dream for any entrepreneur. But also really cool because I went back and listened to the episode, the original interview with you, and you actually mentioned Shark Tank in the episode, but like totally unrelated to your business. I think you spoke it into existence.
And I think the last time we talked, I don't even know if I had even, started the process of getting on the show. It's been a long time, but it may have been like early on, but I couldn't talk about it because I was sworn to secrecy still. But I don't remember what I said. But yeah, I mean, how exciting, right? Really cool.
Yeah, you said, I mean, basically it was a bunch of dad jokes and just straight embarrassment. So it was pretty impressive. Hopefully you won't get sued now. So I definitely want to dig into it. Overall, how would you characterize the Shark Tank experience firsthand?
It was very horrific experience. I mean, imagine, right? Standing in front of, billionaires, millionaires and pitching your company that you gave birth to and started, years ago. And I don't know. It's one of those things where now that I've done it, I'm not afraid to do much of anything after that. I tell you what, it was good for the business, obviously, but it was good for me as a founder of a company too, because I knew that I was not going to be the guy that got on the show and didn't know his numbers and got just beat up by Mr. Wonderful or whoever. So, I knew that I was going to be on the show probably 3 months before I actually did have to go through the pitch.
See, we should have done the original interview like right then when you found out, so you would have been even more uncomfortable.
Oh, I know. I would have been sweating, but but it worked out great. And like I said, I say horrifying, and it was very stressful. Yeah, it's one of those things where you put yourself in a position where you're uncomfortable. And once you get done with it, then you're like, oh my gosh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And now I can do anything now.
And now you can be openly horrified on TV in front of millions of viewers. So
I don't care anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So what for you was the most stressful part about the whole Shark Tank process?
Here's the thing. You're going to go on the show and it's going to go one of two ways, right? They're either going to like you and give you a deal, or they're not going to like you and not give you a deal. And probably the scariest part of it, or the most stressful thing, is, I had spent 4 years leading up to that moment building this business and thinking it had legs and traction and was going to be successful. But if I got on national TV and they just rip it apart and tell me to take it behind the shed and shoot it, then all that work was for nothing, right? I mean, it's hard to come back from that. And that's what I was scared about. It might not go well. Like when you go on Shark Tank, you're taking a risk too. Obviously the upside's great, but the downside could be detrimental too. And that's probably the biggest thing that I was worried about.
It sounds stressful, but as you mentioned, super rewarding. I'm not going to give away anything, but let's just say, because I want people to check out the episode themselves, let's say hypothetically, if you were to secure a deal on that show, how hypothetically would it be working out for you and your new shark investor? Like, kind of how's that dynamic hypothetically going?
Well, hypothetically speaking, it's been extremely beneficial to our company, not only from an exposure standpoint, a credibility standpoint, and all of those things, but we haven't gotten too into the weeds yet with the sharks themselves. It's a long process that probably people don't realize when they watch the show, is that, oh, they got a deal, it's done. But then it just becomes a long, tedious process where there is more due diligence and different things like that. But that said, hypothetically speaking, if I was to get a deal with a couple of sharks, I am happy with the way things have worked out.
Oh, perfect. That's great. I mean, a kid can dream, right?
Right.
Well, congrats on all the hypotheticals.
Yeah.
What would your advice be for any entrepreneur who aspires to be on Shark Tank one day?
To go for it. So when I first launched the company in 2018, I flew out to Los Angeles and I did like an open audition, and I didn't get a call back. I didn't even get an email back, or just like I went out there, I pitched to during an open casting call, and then just never heard again from them. But didn't give up and tried again. And I think one of the ways that, like, if you want to be on Shark Tank, or if you want your business in general to be successful, put it out there in every single way you know how. So Max, doing a podcast. You never know who's going to listen to it, right? So
Yeah, I've actually recruited my fellow Hoosier Al and Mark Cuban to listen to this part of this episode. So you're welcome, hypothetically.
So hypothetically speaking, the way that I got on Shark Tank is because they found me online, doing PR, doing, fundraising and stuff like that. Just get it out there, get your company out there for everyone to see. And somebody important might see it and might reach out to you.
Any other kind of exciting development with Hydrant? Maybe not as many people know about, but it's something you're really, really pumped about.
Yeah, there is. And I haven't even told you about this yet, but towards the end of last year, around the same time that Shark Tank was getting ready to air, we entered into a partnership with the International Association of Firefighters Financial Corporation. So,
ooh, awesome! That's awesome. I mean, that's a natural fit for you.
It's insane, right? So the IAFF is the largest firefighter union in the country, in the world, really. There are over 325,000 firefighters that are part of that union. And basically what this partnership means is that the IAFF is going to promote Hydrant internally to all their members, all their firefighters. And in return, we're going to give them back a percentage of revenue to their charity. It's incredible. The entire supply side of our two-sided marketplace is now covered. We have as many firefighters as we can handle, and now we just got to find them jobs. So that's probably even bigger than Shark Tank, was that partnership with the IAFF Financial Corporation, and just being in with them and having the ability, making a phone call or sending an email saying, hey, could you reach out to 300,000 firefighters and tell them that we're doing this, and they will. And it's incredible.
That's so incredible. I could see how, but you have a beautiful Sharknado of sharks and firefighters that are just fueling your business. So really, really pumped and excited and thrilled to hear all that you've been up to. Last thing here, an episode 200 special version of Final Thoughts, THOS, Final Thoughts. This could be words of advice. It could be a spontaneous dad joke. It could be a hypothetical money raising situation, whatever you want. Take us home here.
I have a dad joke. It's one that I was talking about the other day. Why do melons have weddings?
It's got to be something with honeydew, right?
Because they can't elope.
Oh, you got me. Bravo. Oh, man. The man can pitch to sharks. He can hang out with firefighters, and he can make jokes about cantaloupe. Thanks so much, Dave. Shout out Hydrant. Awesome business. Just really, really great to catch up.
Thanks, Max. Congratulations on your 200th episode, man.
No matter how many cold calls I did, how many cold visits I did, how much door knocking I did on commercial properties, I never could cut my way in. I never could get anybody to take a chance on me. And this so happened to luck up and start mowing the residential property for a franchisor. And he owned, I think, 3 locations at the time. And every year I would beg him, hey, let us bid on the contract for your 3 locations. And he would say, no, we're locked in with somebody that corporate has us using, and they suck, and we don't really like them, but we have to use them. And I thought, man, I know this guy will give me a chance if I can just figure out a way to get on his radar. I don't know where I came up with this idea. I think I was eating at one of his restaurants, and I just noticed that the drive-thru was filthy. It was full of cigarette butts and debris and chewing gum and just nasty stuff. And I thought, man, this is pitiful. This is one of the world's most valuable companies, and the drive-thru looks awful. And then I started noticing all McDonald's looked that way. And I thought, well, I'm gonna propose to this guy that for the same price as what he's paying now, we will detail the drive-thru and we will clean up all of that stuff. Literally with our bare hands, pick up cigarette butts and chewing gum and trash and bubblegum wrappers.
I'm starting to gather why your PTSD comment. It makes a lot more sense now.
Literally, man, and so I pitched him on this, and he thought, you know what? If you're gonna do that, knock yourself out. I'll give you a shot on one restaurant. And so every time we would come service the property, we would, on my hands and knees, crawling through the drive-thru, picking up cigarette butts and putting it in a 5-gallon pail. I've probably picked up 1 million cigarette butts in my life, but it looked great when we got done. It it looked, and we took before and after pictures. This was back in like 2002. So literally like going to Walgreens and developing pictures and mailing them to this guy with the invoice and showing him, that, hey, when you hired us to mow the yard, you didn't hire us to mow the yard. You hired us to sell more Big Macs. You hired us to sell more apple pies, because it's our belief that if the drive-through looks spotless, people will upgrade to the extra value meal. And I don't know if that was true or not. It had to be, because it looked better. And so he's like, I'd like for you to do all three of my locations. So we did all three of his locations for a couple of years, and then we proved out a track record. And then he enabled me to pitch, I guess you could say, the regional group of franchisers and corporate-owned stores. And so over a 3 or 4 year period of time, I was able to develop that into probably $500,000 a year in business, because we ended up doing every single McDonald's location within a 100-mile radius of Nashville, Tennessee, something like 150 locations. And it all started, with just figuring out a different way to sell our services and align what it is we did with what our customers' goals were.
We are going to get into copy and other things that make your audience go bananas, BANAS. But before we get to that, I want to dive a little bit into your career in the TV world. Yes, you kind of started your career that way, but you also, at the age of 2, made your Sesame Street debut. Can you share some of that background?
I did. You really did your homework. Wait, first I have to backtrack and say that it's BANANAS because you spelled it bananas. And so that's
did I
you did, and so that just nags at me, so I just had to go back to that. And now we'll go to that's a perfect segue to Sesame Street, I think, spelling.
Yeah, let's get the count here.
Get the count? Oh, the count.
The character, the count.
I thought that was like one of your technicians to edit out the bananas.
See, this is why spell check is like the most useful thing ever, probably. Thank you so much, Dave, Brian, and Laura, for making this episode 200 special. Now we're going to welcome back on returning guest Jonathan Katz from Blendy, who shares the growth of Blendy. Best-selling author John Warlow and his best-selling analogies, and brand man David Breyer with some of the best voices and words on aesthetically pleasing things that you'll ever hear. Alrighty, we are back for a super duper special episode 200 catch up special interview with Jonathan Katz, the founder of Blendy, everyone's favorite portable blender, one of my favorite products. Jonathan, this is crazy. We first spoke, the first interview was episode 104 back in July 2020. You were just a little boy and now you're a 75-year-old man. How you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thankfully, not 75, but very well.
Oh, man. We're sorry to all our 75-year-old listeners there. You have public enemy number one in Jonathan Katz now, but it's just so cool staying in touch. You and I speak and freak. We speak frequently on social media and just catching up about all sorts of things, business and personal. So it's really, really cool. And I'm grateful, really grateful we connected in the first place. On the Blendy side, I think Blendy has really, really blossomed over the past couple of years. And so the first thing that I know that you've done over the past couple of years that is super ballsy and I want to talk about is you basically took a bunch of your savings and like poured it into one big manufacturing run to like kind of, focus your commitment on the business, but also to, take this thing to the next level. Can you tell us about that and what it was like doing that sort of big risk?
Prior to around when we first spoke, sales were kind of just picking up by then. Earlier this year, later last year, I was coming up on a big tax burden, I would imagine. And so I decided, let's just go all in on Blendy and let's take about $50,000 and just make, as many units as we can and kind of take a big bet. And so it left me with an insane amount of low savings to live off of. And as you all know, manufacturing takes nowadays like 75 days to get you via boat. So it was a massive bet. And it's one that's thus far paid off really well. And, we've done a lot of great things over the last couple of months in order to sell those units.
That's awesome. Well, kudos to you for doing it. Like, people talk about entrepreneurship and risk, but like literally getting down to like, the point that you have barely any savings, but like what's going to get you out of that is your business, if you're committed to it. As I mentioned, that takes huge balls. It's a huge risk. And it's just like it pumps me up to hear that you made that decision, but also that it's paying off. And so scary times, obviously. What was it like, those first few weeks after you did that and kind of as you're waiting for things to happen? What was it like being like super tight on the savings side, but also, being focused on the business?
It's kind of chaotic, but when you try and make as many units as you can, just because of economies of scale, and you can get the unit price down. So I knew that getting the unit price down would save me kind of in the long run, or already make more money. But those first couple of weeks are kind of hectic, and you could be staying up all night and you're thinking about, oh my God, how am I going to get the next sale? How who, like, you start kind of looking down your list, I suppose, or I did, of retail stores who might either need a reorder, or can we get some friends to pre-order, or can we get some people to pre-order this, right, in order to get the upfront money, just so I can last those couple months before they come in. So there's a lot of getting pre-orders and seeing who wants to get a deal before they come in.
It's crazy. I'm stressed thinking about it, but it sounds like a beautiful bet for you. And then you have had, you're very open with friends and family and kind of sharing the progress of the business and some of the numbers that you've had. And you don't need to talk specific numbers, but you've had some phenomenal, increase in revenue over the past couple of years. So congrats again on that. And what do you think has been the biggest driver for you growing this thing with Blendy?
So the main thing was we got into this Facebook group called the Boutique Hub, and that was a huge success just because they pair, wholesalers kind of like me with retailers across the country, mainly boutiques. And that alone allowed us to get to over 100 retail stores in just under 2 years, which is pretty good for a new product such as, the portable blender. A lot of boutiques are focused on like clothing and, just stuff like that. So portable blenders didn't think made sense, but made a lot of sense in hindsight. So that really helps spur growth. And now what's really going to help spur growth is what we've seen is pairing with marketing promotional companies. So those companies then work with companies like a Microsoft or like an Apple, kind of the names there to do corporate gifting. And so those sell thousands of units or hundreds of units at a time, which is amazing. And then we just recently got into 2 showrooms, one in the Atlanta market and then one in the Dallas market. And what that means is your product is part of kind of like a showcase of a whole host of other products. But that showroom then invites big retailers, small retailers, any size into the showroom to purchase products at wholesale rates. That just started, so that will really have an effect this year. And we sold well into 6 figures last year, and we're probably we're up already thus far 60%. So that's really good. And I can only see that number going up, but it really depends on manufacturing and how many units we can get in before the end of the year.
Absolutely. Well, I knew a Facebook group was the secret to your success. You had it written all over you. No, but I think an awesome lesson from that is just putting yourself out there and putting yourself in a space where you can create those relationships with different retailers and customers and just people in the space that can lead to different niches of the market for you in this corporate gifting. That's something I never really thought about before, but that's a huge opportunity for products like yours. So that's awesome. Like, that's so cool that you stumbled onto that. The showroom standpoint, can you give us just like a quick rundown of like what does that mean for your business when your product gets into a showroom?
It's one of those things where it's like, I was actually surprised we got into showrooms because back when we first spoke, I think in 2020, we had applied to 2 different ones, given they were like the premiere. So I wasn't expecting to get in them. But they were like, you don't have enough SKUs, like you only have 1 product. We can't get that, because what happens is these showrooms, not only are they a display at markets, but they also have a sales force. So like that sales force would go out to different retail stores across the country. Or in that, region. So like either the South, the Midwest, the East Coast, and then they'll sell your product. And so they want to have a lot of products to sell. They want to have a catalog, not just one. I was kind of surprised that we got into the showroom, but we got into a very good one in Atlanta, and now we're getting into a just as good in Dallas. And so it's just kind of confirmation for retailers, like your product is legit, it's vetted, and this is a trusted company in the showroom that we buy from to then get your product. So it was a big stepping stone for us.
Jonathan Katz, the modern Houston, Atlanta, Vegas.
That's right.
That's awesome though. The last update with your business that I thought was really, really cool is you've gotten some great press over the past couple of years, and you've gotten your first experiences. So that's a tongue twister. Experiences on TV. What was it like? What was that process like for you? And what's it like when people are like, "Holy cow, that's Blendy on TV that they're promoting"?
So it was really funny. I've recently just quit my job, so that was a big thing. But the TV aspect played into that because I was actually at my day job as a wealth manager, and we got into the Tamarind Hall show, and so I was able to at like 10 a.m. I think it aired. And that day we did about $33,000. And I was just sitting there at my office like, wow, this is insane. I'm like, I'm at my office working when I could be doing, or I'm watching Blendy stuff. So now it was finally time to take it full time and make the leap. And yeah, really happy to do that. But that was Tamarind Hall show was pretty amazing for us. Best day in sales ever.
You only hear this on an entrepreneurship podcast, but congrats on quitting. That's
yes,
a big
thank
step.
You. Yeah.
Well, Jonathan, this has been so awesome catching up. Huge fan of Blendy, and for any listener out there, like if you're somebody who enjoys going to the gym or smoothies or protein shakes and just wants things a little bit more convenient, a little bit more portable, like I love Jonathan's Blendy. Not just Jonathan's Blendy, but Blendy in general. And definitely recommend checking it out. I love mine. To wrap up here, it's a special episode 200 additional final thoughts. It could be anything you want. It could be a quote. It could be a Kid Cudi song lyric, as I know you love. Whatever you want, take us home here.
The whole reason why I'm still here and doing this, especially in the early stages of my journey, was when things got bad or like when things didn't seem that they were that good, I just at least did one thing from a business a day, whether that was like talking about it with somebody or sending an email off. I think just making connections and trying to email as many people as possible and doing at least one thing for your business is always good. And that will keep you kind of like, going when it doesn't seem like it might be all that viable. So just keep doing that and keep doing one thing a day for your business at least.
And she said, it came down to a simple fact. Did I want to spend 3 years in prison or 3 weeks in prison? And I said, tell me more. And I said, well, an earnout is like a prison sentence for an entrepreneur, right? Where you're working for somebody else. You don't have your own discretion. You've got to get everything approved by a boss. Whereas a 3-week prison sentence is writing your SOPs. Does it suck? Absolutely. But if given the choice of spending 3 weeks or 3 years, I'd rather take the 3-week deal. So look, I think that's one of the things that's, again, it's not a sexy recommendation. Michael Gerber in the book, The E-Myth, talked about it ad nauseum. But it is critical to building, I think, a business that can thrive without you and getting out cleanly.
And here I was thinking that she had a prison business, but I'm all for the power of analogy. So that's amazing. And I think a lot of times when you're in the thick of it and when you're more on the doer side, you can tend to kind of keep pushing things off or be so swamped with kind of like the next task that you're like, yeah, I don't really have time for that. But if you take that long-term, that long-run approach, maybe even imagine it as a prison sentence. This is like the effects of what you're doing. I think it's a phenomenal way of looking at things.
Yeah, it's also, I think, philosophical about how do you run a company. Like, for a lot of people, in particular in the United States, where there's this sort of ethos about maximizing top line revenue, there's the Inc. 5000. I think those are all wonderful awards and great things to get. Yet I think they place perhaps too great an emphasis on top line revenue growth at all costs. And what I mean by that is I think the most important job of an entrepreneur is ultimately to build a company that doesn't depend on them. I use the analogy, a lot of people listening to this are parents, right? Some people want their kid to go to Harvard, want their kid to play football at Auburn or whatever. For most parents, they don't want these massive goals for their kids. They want their kids to be successful, independent adults. And I think if more people thought of their business as a child, where the main goal is not to create the next Tesla, it's actually to create a company that can thrive without you. And instead of thinking of yourself as, the chief salesperson for your company, instead think of yourself as like the parent. Sometimes a parent's job is not to take center stage. It's actually to get the company to live on its own.
And I was always fascinated how you ever notice how there's certain styles of design that take you, they practically transport you somewhere. It might be something that's nostalgic. It might be something vintage. It might be something futuristic. But just by seeing it, you know where you've landed. It's kind of like those voices. Like I always am amused by those, what I call those stupid trailer voices where they say, in a world, and you hear that crap and you go, oh my God.
You should do that, by the way. You should just say the words "in a world," and that you could get paid for that, I think.
Exactly. Well, the thing is that it's like where men meet women and women meet men, and when men were made of wood and women were made of steel. And so you hear all that crap, and all of a sudden it's now transported you and me to someplace. Well, if that can be done with a voice, it can also be done. Like, I'm always fascinated with soundtrack music, because you ever notice, like, they hit just that one note and you know that something horrible is going to occur in the next 30 seconds. How do they know? How does that one note strike that? How do we all know that? I always find that fascinating. Or there's a certain little pitch that the soundtrack seems to go, and all of a sudden they're about to fall in love and have mad, passionate intercourse on the screen.
That got rather mad and passionate. Thank you so much, Jonathan, John, and David, for sharing your wisdom and voices on this special. Now, let's welcome back special returning guest Deirdre Lester on her move from Chief Revenue Officer of Barstool Sports to Chief Executive Officer of Outsider. After that, we have the highlight of Allie Webb, founder of Dry Bar, explaining how in the world they've been able to maintain fantastic customer service while growing location after location after location after location. And then a wonderful medley of bloopers that prove that starting off and ending every podcast with the intro outro is the hardest damn thing in the world. I don't know why it is, but you'll see for yourself. Alrighty, we are back for a special episode 200 reunion edition with Deirdre Lester. One of the I forget the official accolade, but you're one of the most powerful women in the sports world. I think one of the most powerful people in the world of the outside as well now. Deirdre,
love that.
Thank you so much for coming back for episode 200. How you doing today?
Doing great. Thank you. And thank you for having me.
Of course. And this is really, really sweet. The first interview was back when you were Chief Revenue Officer of Barstool. That was back in episode 152, back in July 2021. And of course, as anybody who's listened knows, that was recorded in the Barstool headquarters in New York, which, by the way, thanks again for inviting me and giving me the tour for that. I think the podcast speaks for itself and people loved your interview. And then on top of that, when I shared out the pictures from the Barstool office on Instagram, like, I have never received like a bigger outpour of, holy shit, you did what? Just for being at the office.
Well, look, I remember you reaching out to me, or we got connected and you asked me to come on the show. I was excited to do it. And I kind of think I put it to you and said, I'll do it if you'll come in and see us and do it out of one of our studios. I think partly because, we were one of the few companies at the time that were going into the office and trying to keep our offices and our studios and our production going from our Barstool headquarters in New York City. And part of that was, being there from a business leadership perspective, maybe not every day, but, several days a week all throughout a very challenging time. And I think, having it in there and doing that interview in our studio was fun for me too. I think it was the first time I had recorded a podcast out of an actual Barstool studio as well.
Yeah, you mentioned that on the podcast. So I'm glad. I mean, this happens with all my guests. I introduce all my guests to a different Barstool studio and interview them there for the first time. So you're one of many, but no, glad I could help out.
I do notice that here we are at episode 200, and you still don't have a studio. We're still seeing your living room. So maybe next time I talk to you, you'll be in a fancy studio somewhere.
It's a little bit different when we're paying rent for apartment and about to get rent raised 70,000 fold. So I think once a little bit more permanent, I'll have a more developed studio. But yeah, anyway, you can do a lot with podcasting with a good microphone and good connection. So
absolutely.
I mentioned in that episode that it was super surreal, not just being at Barstool interviewing you, but that was the first in-person interview I did in a year and a half. And it was a pretty monumental and great kind of comeback to that. And it's kind of funny now looking back because there's been 48 episodes or 47 episodes since then. And I've only done 2 more in-person interviews. So that was a lot of excitement for something that didn't matriculate too much, but very special nonetheless.
I mean, your point is right. We can do so much of this remotely now. Remote conferences have still remained, a thing. At least in the industries that I run around in, digital media, podcasting, consumer, direct-to-consumer goods, and marketing. That said, I think people really love a real-world connection, whether that be to interview a guest for a show like this, or whether it be, going to industry conferences and having the opportunity to network around the room. And I do think that, one of the things we did see at Barstool was during the pandemic, one of our shows that had tremendous growth was a show called $1 Million Worth of Game. And they never conducted an interview over Zoom. They interviewed like top tip of the spear rappers and hip hop artists. And they flew all over the country at a time where people didn't think you needed to do that anymore. And the connections they formed with their guests were really powerful. So I encourage people to try to do those in-person meets when you can get them to do it. But then at the same time, we're fortunate, and I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today where I'm doing it if it wasn't possible to work remotely.
Well, I'm encouraged, and I'm encouraging as well because of all the interviews I've done, there's an extra special feel to it, and I think an extra connection between host and guest, and kind of opening doors, and you never know what that will turn into when you do I just said do wow, and when you do in-person interviews, it is extra special. So, speaking of special connection and something that can happen outside, let's talk Outsider. So you are starting and hit the ground running at a pretty new but amazing chapter for you. And so you've joined Outsider as CEO. And I always sound that out because whenever I say CEO, it all runs together and it sounds weird. So here we are, Deirdre Lester, CEO of Outsider, teaming up with some really, really cool names in the space, including Jay Cutler. I've never really heard of that name before. I don't know why. No, but it's an amazing company and brand, and I can see already the steps you've taken to help things explode from a content standpoint, and just grow the brand and grow the revenue there as well. So what brought you to Outsider in the first place?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm very excited. It's a big step for me from a career perspective to step into this seat, and also a big change from coming from a company that while it was small ish when I started, and we had such rapid growth. It was a very large company when I left, nearing 400 employees, I believe. Here I'm going all the way back to an early stage company that was founded in 2020 by a gentleman named Shannon Terry. Shannon, to answer your question, is someone I've worked with in the past. He had recruited me back in, I think, 2005 to come run the sales and revenue for a company called Rivals.com. If you're not familiar, Rivals was, at the time, the number one, college football, college sports, essentially recruiting and news platform. Had forged a national brand and, had, forged a big partnership with Yahoo, and we were ultimately acquired by Yahoo sometime in 2007. So, it was a really exciting chapter in my career. I had gone from being an account executive at ESPN to a much larger role at a much smaller company, and it really helped catapult me into doing more entrepreneurial things. And I stayed in touch with Shannon all these years as a friend, as a mentor, and just as someone who's always been, so successful in all the endeavors he's started in the digital media space. Always would continue to stay in touch and say, should there ever be the opportunity to come partner again, I'm always here, waiting in the wings. And equally, he was always, kind of consulting me on the things I was doing, including going to Barstool Sports in 2018. So this opportunity with Outsider came about. Shannon and Jay Cutler, who most of the listeners hopefully know Jay, but if not, Jay played 12 years as a quarterback in the NFL. He also went on to star or co-star in a reality show with his former wife, Kristen Cavallari. So he's got, a massive following on both the sports and sports culture standpoint, as well as sort of a more mainstream audience outside of sports with people who watch, reality TV programming. So it's been really fun to work alongside the two of them and take what they had established with the Outsider brand over. They launched it in 2020 and worked towards driving a significant audience via articles written by over 20 now kind of established writers in our demographic. Jay has become our chief design officer and has established, a real credible brand mark for us. So our logo is really important to us in terms of how we market it, how it appears, all of our goods and consumer goods is a big portion of the business. So there's a media entity that is Outsider, outsider.com, all the social extensions of that, video, social, etc. Events are coming as well. And then there's the other side of our business, which is consumer goods, which today, if you were to go to the Shopify store we launched, it's hats, it's hoodies, it's all the things that help market our brand and create a community with people, wearing our mark, wearing our branding. Jay's the architect of all of that, but we have a lot more coming down the pike that's really exciting. And I think the big opportunity for Outsider is, the combination of those two things and how they intersect and how we build a community that will not only consume our media, wear our brand and attend our events, but also be excited to buy consumer goods for us that we are manufacturing and distributing and carry our mark.
I have to correct you because you left off on Jay's resume that he and Kristen had a fantastic cameo in the league, which was really good as well. So that's probably at the top of his accomplishments as well.
I'm sure I missed that one. But people ask me a lot what it's like working with Jay. It's been like only a few months now, although there was a lot of lead up to me coming on board and, joining as CEO of Outsider. And it's been really great because, like I said, Jay's our chief design officer, but he's also like a lead talent within our programming. You see him creating a lot of new IP-driven shows that are living on the Outsider platforms. That's been really fun to kind of see him find his new voice through Outsider. And he's just very involved in the day-to-day business. He's in the office whenever I'm in Nashville. So that's been fun, and I'm excited for what the future holds working together with Shannon and Jay.
So speaking of the future of Outsider. So for those who aren't familiar with Outsider firsthand yet, what is it that makes Outsider so different than some other brands in the space?
Outsider is a media brand first, but also a lifestyle company that celebrates American culture through entertainment, through sports and sports lifestyle, through country music, through news to a degree. We're really trying to create a platform and a community of like-minded people who, celebrate American culture and lifestyle through all the things I mentioned, share in those, interests and a way of life, and celebrate them, versus trying to be so like polarizing and divisive. And I think that's one thing. And then again, I think that we have some really unique, assets in the leadership here. And when you look at the track record again of Shannon, who built Rivals.com, 24/7 Sports, comicbook.com, and popculture.com. He's got an incredible background in building audiences around a particular demographic, lifestyle niche at scale, and monetizing that through SEO, advertising, programmatic, et cetera. And that's where Outsider is today, where he's gotten it to, and where we'll continue to grow our baseline. Then you bring me to the picture, who has, a lot of background in sales and sponsorships, in how to create IP-driven shows and monetize those, how to take those from the internet into the real world and create experiential events for your fans and your community to bring them together and have them really feel like they're part of the creation of what you're making. And then this third component, which is the consumer products division, that we're really bullish on, that we see the beginnings and a lot of traction on already, but we have barely begun scratching the surface on what we think we can accomplish on that front.
Yeah, it's exciting. Like I'm excited on your behalf of going from, I mean, it's funny because Barstool is, in the grand scheme of companies, is still like a super young company, but obviously is very established and has grown so much over the years. And you've worked at plenty of companies before that have, you know, even longer histories. And it's really exciting to move to a new role in such a new company with so much potential, and now having the amazing relationships you've had throughout your career as well. Your role, you know, you're going from most recently Chief Revenue Officer to Chief Executive Officer, now CEO. How have you changed kind of your goals and priorities now that you know, you're literally the person leading in charge with all this stuff?
Yeah, it is a big change. It's like what you said, we were talking before you turned on the recording, right? Like, you've gone from having, last time we talked, a girlfriend to now a fiance. Like, the roles
it's
are
the same
changing,
thing as
right?
your career.
Yeah, you stumble over it sometimes. And frankly, importantly, like, it's important to remember and recognize the change in role and not fall back into only doing what I've done before and what I know so well. I've been in some form of a digital media sales role or leadership role since, you know, longer than I'd like to say, but 1999. So, and this is a business that has grown so much and changed so much from that time. And yet there's some fundamentals in sales and advertising sales and media sales that, you know, still apply to everything on that front. So what I would say that, you know, my priorities have changed is, you know, you can't sell until you have things to sell. So my focus right now is, you know, more on the building of what are we actually taking to market? What is our positioning and how are we going and how quickly can we go, versus what was the pipeline looking like last month and what does it look like now and what's the close ratio and all those things. We'll get there. I'm excited to get there, and I think we'll get there very quickly. And I'm definitely looking for the right people to come in and step into those roles, so that I'm not stepping backwards, right? So I think that is one of the tricky parts of making a major career step change at any level. And so it's something I think about constantly, but it would be easy to fall back into the role of like, hey, I know how to create a pipeline. I know how to do sales. I know how to hire a couple salespeople to get that going. And I am doing that. Trust me, like that is a priority for us, but there's so much more to do. And again, this whole consumer products division, that's a completely other beast, which is one of the reasons I wanted to come here. Like I worked on a lot of cool partnerships at Barstool that went from not just being advertising partnerships, but went from advertising to advertising plus, you know, a licensing deal, a royalty on a product sold, you know, skin in the game partnerships where if you really want us to move the needle for you, let us participate in the upside and then watch what we can really do to really, you know, fuel the growth of your product. Best examples of that would be in the alcohol space with Pink Whitney and High Noon. But there was a lot of others. We launched a men's grooming line. We launched a frozen pizza. We had a bunch of things, you know, irons in the fire when I was leaving. But really creation of those products from start to finish and then going out and marketing them, that's a different animal altogether. So we're in R&D on several products that we think will really appeal to our demographic. And I'm also on the, you know, building the audience front and also community. We just did our first big event in Nashville about 2 weeks ago. We partnered with NASCAR around Race Week in Nashville. We partnered with a group called Whiskey Jam, which is an awesome country music concert series that happens throughout the summer in a massive parking lot venue in Midtown Nashville. And we had thousands of people come through an event that was heavily branded Outsider and NASCAR. We literally had like stock cars parked in the audience and Outsider signage around the stage. And Whiskey Jam brings a big following and big audience there, but thousands of people walk through that venue. I'm super proud to see that come to life, and that in such a short amount of time of being here. So looking for, you know, more opportunities to also bring our brand from the digital realm to the physical realm, because I think that will help create a sense of community that is hard to do in the digital space alone.
Well, Deirdre, it's so cool to hear these things come to life, and we know there'll be many, many more events and exciting fireworks and partnerships and brandscapes. Shout out Drew Davis for that term. So yeah, lots and lots of potential with Outsider, and super cool, and know you and have an awesome, fantastic team behind it alongside you as well. So thanks again for coming on and sharing the story and all that's new with you and Outsider. You can learn more at outsider.com and all the social media channels. Your content is a well-oiled machine already. Last thing here, special episode 200 edition of Final Thoughts, which you have to recite the ABCs backwards as quick as you can. No, I'm just kidding. It could be whatever you want. Send us home here. Stage is yours.
Look, I think what you're doing here and the fact that we're celebrating your 200th episode and you powered through a pandemic to get that off the ground and get that going is a true testament to the power and the impact of consistency. So if I could say anything to anyone, it's figure out how to get things done and then do it consistently. Obviously pivot and change as needed along the way. But I think that is what I've seen so many businesses and individuals and content creators and new companies who've made it through the last couple of years and look back in the rearview mirror being like, holy crap, I can't believe we did all of that through such a challenging time personally and professionally. And consistency seems to be the common thread that drove those people's and those companies' success.
Once it gets to like 50, 100, 150 locations, how do you ensure that you're still delivering that same fantastic customer experience?
Well, I mean, it's the single hardest part of the whole thing, and as we've grown and scaled, I mean, that's obviously what's like most near and dear to my heart, which is like, creating that, that environment and that experience that you're, no matter what dry bar you're sitting in one part of the country, it's always really great. And, I mean, that's like, we've put a lot of like robust training into place, and we have, stylists that are trainers, and we have lots of different, checks and balances and, lots of different procedures and things that happen before stylists go on the floor. But, it's not perfect over the years, like, it kind of has ebbed and flowed, and sometimes we were doing it better than others. And, it's been a major learning experience, and it's obviously not just the stylist, it's like the customer service and how our bartenders are treating people. So it's like a constant, never ending project and thing that we have to always stay on to make sure. And as you would imagine, the big compliment I can get from a client is that like, oh, I was in everywhere I go, it's great, and that's like the best compliment I could hear, because it's really hard, and it's like a lot of oversight. It's a lot of systems. It's a lot of like staying on top of people. And, like I said, I think sometimes we've done it better than others, and it's the people, it's making sure that you have the right people in place. And sometimes we have, and sometimes we haven't.
Oh, wow. That was a hot start. I had like a frog in my throat right at the gate. So as a reminder, I do edit.
You do edit, yeah.
Sometimes you just start off hot. Oh, that was not starting off on the right note. 1 second. Literally the wrong note. Holy fuck, that was loud. I don't know why my headphones were all the way up. That's how I start off every interview. You not only studied abroad in Spain, but one of your majors was Spanish language and lit.
It was, indeed.
And lit. Wait, I need to say that again because my voice cracked and I'm going to get destroyed by my fiance. You let your business run wild. Let your business run wild. Until next time, let your business. Excuse me. He has yes, he has humped. He has. He has a hump. He has. He has humped. That was next. All right. He sometimes it is the biggest grind in the world just to say Tim Timmons was umping a game, not humping a game. Thank you so much, Deirdre, Allie, and all the guests over the past 100 episodes who have been more than willing to put up with my mistakes. Now, it is time for the special announcement. So I am extremely excited. I'm trying to drum roll the mic. This probably sounds terrible. Finally, we are launching very, very soon the Podcasting to the Max newsletter. It has a pun in its name, and there's more where that came from. Podcasting to the Max newsletter. Here is what you can expect. It's going to be written by yours truly. I'm still fine-tuning some of the fine details, but it will definitely have behind the scenes from the Wild Business Growth Podcast. It will have entrepreneurship lessons and quick bits of valuable advice from Wild Business Growth Podcast guests. It will include podcasting tips. Yes, that includes podcast production and podcast hosting. It goes to 3 P's of podcasting: podcast planning, podcast production, podcast promotion, and a P that might even be the most important, and that is puns. Surely there will be some puns, and don't call me Shirley. So, how do you sign up? All you have to do is go to MaxPodcasting.com, scroll down to the bottom of the homepage, and you'll see a thing there that says Podcasting to the Max. Just put in your name and email, and you will be signed up. That's MaxPodcasting.com. Scroll to the bottom, put in your name and email, and you are prepped to start receiving the Podcasting to the Max newsletter very, very, very soon. Now, this is a wonderful time for a halftime break. So before we take the actual break, we have some musical performers. So please, round of applause for special guests Stacy Madison of Stacy's Pita Chips and Jessica Lee Clark Bojan, who has a very special rendition of her own. Enjoy.
So this woman comes out, and it's a commercial for a perfume. I will sing it because the song is catchy. And she comes out and she's scrambling. You know, she's got a fry pan and a wooden spoon and like a sexy dress. And she's singing, "I can bring home the bacon, ba-na-na-na, fry it up in the pan, da-da-na-na, and never, ever, ever let you forget you're a man, 'cause I'm a woman." Angele, and she talks, and then they have a bottle of perfume that comes out, and you know the soft smoke that goes around her.
I'll have a Big Mac McDLT, a quarter pounder with cheese, fillet of fish, a hamburger, a cheeseburger, McChicken, and McNuggets, tasty golden French dip, regular and larger size, and salad, chef or garden, or a chicken salad, oriental, and for breakfast, hot dog, cakes and sausage, maybe omelette, McMuffin, all 3 kinds of Danish, hash brown 2, and for dessert, hot apple pie, a sundae, 3 varieties of soft serve, 3 kinds of cookies, 3 kinds of shakes and chocolatey chip cookies, and to drink a Coca-Cola, Diet Coke, or orange drink, a Sprite, and coffee, and hot chocolate, also apple, orange, grapefruit juice. I love McDonald's, good time, great taste, and I get this all in one place.
Thank you so much, Stacy and Jessica. I'm speechless. I'm ready to eat at McDonald's and ready to sing. And I'm never ready to sing. Okay, time for the official halftime break. If you so choose to pause right now, this is a good time. That's somewhat in the middle of the episode. So you can hit pause, return to whatever you were doing with your full attention, and you can pause right about now. And we're back. Welcome back. Now, let's officially kick off the second half with a wonderful mix of highlights from returning guests, including Dawn Dixon of Pagane on the Flat Out story, full of ahas, Dan Harden of Whipsaw on the concept of balanced tension when it comes to design, and just the beauty of it. Betty Brennan of Taylor Studios on why she chose to do what she does, and a wonderful quote about woolly mammoths, and an impression from Alana Ben Ari that will just quack you up. To kick things off, pun intended with kick, let's talk about some sore feet. You have a closer relationship with sore feet than probably the average entrepreneur. When did you realize that sore feet was an actual pain point that you could start a business around?
Yeah, that was a good kickoff, Max. Very clever.
Thank you. It came from the soul. Get it?
Okay. So yes, all women who wear heels and those of our male friends who wear heels all know that heels really, really hurt. They're not made for comfort. And I mean, we just deal with it, right? Like since the beginning of women wearing heels, we just know it's unbearable pain that we deal with. But in 2001, I mean, at this point I'm not gonna say my age, but I'm in my, I think, 20s. You know, I spent a lot of time partying and hanging out and going to conferences and traveling in heels. I was ready for a new business idea. I'm an entrepreneur, obviously now for 20 years, but at that point, I think I was in like year 9 or 10. I really like actually prayed on it. Like I want a new thing to do. I'm not inspired. I'd say about a week later, I was out hanging out with friends in South Beach in Miami, wearing heels, and my feet were literally on fire. It was like one of those really high, super high heel, 8 inches or whatever, 6 inches, super high heel.
I'm sore thinking about that.
Fire, it's burning, it's horrible. And that was when I got the aha moment, as Oprah would say. It's like, wait a minute, my feet are killing me. I want to take them off. I don't want to wear sneakers. I don't want to wear flip-flops. First of all, I'm out and I can't carry sneakers or flip-flops with me to change my shoes. How can I solve this problem when I'm out? I said, well, I can carry some flats in my purse. That's easy. Okay, but the flats need to be able to be compact so that I don't have to carry a huge bag. I said, well, what if they're rollable and very lightweight? This is all in my head, me having a full conversation. What if they're rollable or foldable? Okay, that's a good idea. How are people going to get them? Because when their feet hurt the most, that's a pain point. They need to solve it right away. How can we get them to them right away? What delivers things right away? Aha, vending machines. So that was the idea. Sell shoes and vending machines that are portable, lightweight, that roll and fold for women to carry with them when they experience high heel pain.
If you put all of those components together, sometimes it will be like a bad soup, and where you're like, well, I put everything in there, Mom, and I put the carrots and the celery and the chickens in there, but darn it, it just tastes like mush, tastes like dishwater. As a designer, you need to make certain decisions where you sometimes will amplify one of the variables to a point where you can understand it through the caricaturization of that particular variable. In other words, I'm going to amplify the taste of the chicken broth in a way where that's the primary read and everything else is support. So yes, there's balance because you have all the right components for success there that you've built into your product. But it's okay if it makes a statement. It's okay if one of the variables, whether it's an aesthetic feature, it might be like a little piece of stainless steel on the edge of a product. And it doesn't really have any other function there except to be the hook that breaks the balance, the disruptive element that makes you remember it.
What is it that attracted you to museums as a business outlet for what you do?
Well, it's just like I said in the beginning, it's like, wow, people do this for a living. So you can go out there and tell these stories that impact thousands and thousands of visitors. And you get to tell these really cool stories, about history or archaeology and paleontology or culture. And why isn't that attractive, right? And you do it in a really creative way. I mean, we're known for our scenic work and our biological accuracy and our paleontological accuracy. And, we started in that niche, the scenic realm. I mean, other business ideas I had before that were like, we were going to do this retail shop where people come and tell their fishing stories, or even the interactive computer programming. It's just not as cool as telling stories in 3D for places like Gettysburg and Adler Planetarium and the D-Day Museum, now called the World War II Museum in New Orleans, and Smithsonian. I mean, we've done work in all those places all over the United States. We've worked in 44 states and 4 countries and done over 700 projects. I mean, maybe that's looking back and saying, yeah, why wouldn't you want to do that? But think about how many people we've impacted with inspiring, memorable stories. So why wouldn't you want to do that? It's just, who doesn't want to build woolly mammoths?
I say that every morning right after waking up.
I imagine, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think that I'm really good with crazy voices. So I can do kind of a Donald Duck, but I also...
Yeah, you're going to have to do that.
Yeah, I know. I realized as I said that, oh man, this is not going to go... So that's not words, but I can try to do that, but
Holy cow. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Betty. Thank you, Mr. Duck. And thank you, Alana, for that brilliance. Next up, we have returning guest Melanie Diesel, who talks about her new business, The Convoy, followed by the highlight of Marcus Whitney, serial creative entrepreneur, on why this is such a great time to create. And finally, co-founder of Podcast Movement, Jared Easley, with a mix of a dad joke, which, I mean, if you know Jared, that's Jared, and some beatboxing. Alrighty, we are back with a very returning special guest interview, Melanie Diesel, who is cooking with gas in the world of content marketing and entrepreneurship and beyond. And there's endless gas puns with that and diesel puns. Anyway, Melanie, welcome back. You were on in episode 105, which is back in August 2020.
Oh.
Holy shit. In that interview, we talked about Story Fuel. We talked about your book, The Content Fuel Framework. And we talked like a surprising amount about toilets and like toilet listicles and just like a lot of toilet examples and diaper blowouts. So no idea. But how have you been since then?
I mean, I've been good. Apparently, a lot less toilet action than I guess maybe we would have predicted.
Good. That's what's most important here.
No, life's been good. There's been a lot of change over in my world since then. It seems like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, you were just like entering kindergarten back then. I think I referred to you in that episode as a brainstorming queen because like you somehow put a framework to brainstorming. And so you have like this whole livelihood in the content marketing space. And then out of nowhere, like since that interview, you've started another business called The Convoy. What is The Convoy?
You know, this idea is my husband's actually. We co-founded the business together with two other founders. But what we realize is that, you know, so much of our economy and so much of, you know, employment is done by small businesses, independent businesses, not chains or franchises, but, you know, mom and pops or whatever the new age version of that is. And yet those companies get often the worst pricing for all of their supplies, all their technology, everything else, because there's just one of them, right? Like they don't get the benefit of economies of scale, whereas your corner pizza shop is paying a lot more for cheese and dough than, you know, Domino's, for example. So the Convoy essentially combines the buying power of independent businesses to basically give them franchise level pricing on supplies by combining their buying power together. So we're helping independent business owners save money by helping cut expenses, getting them, you know, better pricing on whether it's services or software, all kinds of stuff, you know, helping to essentially just negotiate and get them better pricing so they can do more of what they do best, which is essentially, you know, being the core of our communities.
Awesome. I mean, I can't stand small business. You know, they just don't add anything. They're just very disappointing. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's really cool. It's a strong, obviously all for small businesses, and it's a really strong mission behind everything. And the fact that you're saving fellow business owners money is amazing. How exactly does it work? Like, can you give us an example of like what type of service or partner that a business that used your service would be saving money on?
You go to theconvoy.com and log in. You can actually, or you don't even have to log in. You can just view. We have a marketplace of 200 plus pre-negotiated deals. So you could sort by whatever the things are that your business needs. So just some examples, we've got discounts for Zoom on there, for payroll software, for signage and banners that you might need to print, for office furniture, for office supplies, N95 masks, you know, cleaning supplies. It really runs the gamut. But the whole idea is, you know, though we started with the things that many different types of businesses need. So we may not have just yet, you know, the hyper specific thing that you need for your industry. For example, you know, we might not have the pizza oven that you need for your pizza shop because we don't have as many members who are looking for that. But we are launching that ability to take your requests of the things that you are looking for that aren't included yet in the marketplace. And essentially, once we get enough requests for the same type of item, we go to that manufacturer or, you know, a manufacturer and try to get a discounted price based on how many of our members are interested in that item. And the reason that these businesses, you know, these bigger companies don't give better pricing to small businesses is it's not because they're like, you know, patently evil, although I'm sure some of them are. It's really just, it's economies of scale. Like it's so much easier to sell to a bunch of businesses at once versus small businesses one by one. So that's essentially what we're doing, is giving them the opportunity to sell to a bunch of small businesses at once. And then it makes sense for them to have more efficient pricing, just like they do for these other businesses. So, yeah, so the way it works, you just sign in, you can create a free account. Small businesses don't currently pay to be members. We're really just trying to help them survive. So there's no reason not to sign in at theconvoy.com, check out the discounts, save on whatever you can, and let us know what else you need so we can keep on negotiating for you.
Well, here you are, Melanie Diesel from The Convoy, a truly evil company that has a free of charge access for small businesses. I don't know how you live with yourself. Well, that's so cool. And on the personal side of that, how's the experience been building a business with your husband?
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, I think there's a lot of concerns that some companies have about, partners working together in a business. But the reality is, like, we know how the other communicates. We know how the other thinks. We have a lot of, quote, out of office time that we're still brainstorming and coming up with ideas. So it's been good, like any job change, it's always an adjustment to get the hang of things, and startups move really fast. And that means a lot of change all the time. But it's been really cool, to work with someone who so well, and also just to work with our team in general, because it is a really mission driven company. Like, we're really in it to help small businesses, and it feels good to work for a company where we're all aligned on those values,
Yeah, definitely. And I'm super pumped for my pizza oven as well. So that's just a nice perk to throw in there. When you look back, I mean, Story Fuel is something that you fueled your passion into for years. What is something that you learned from kind of the Story Fuel journey that you've applied to the Convoy so far?
The biggest one probably is just flexibility. I think especially, as trite as it is to talk about the last few years as unprecedented times, like, I certainly had to learn how to adjust my business and be responsive to stuff that I never possibly could have planned for. And I think that's really good preparation for startup life, actually. Things move really quickly, and, you're always having shifting priorities and bringing new people into the fold. So that was definitely good preparation. In a weird way, being a business owner in the pandemic helped make the transition to startup life easier.
And just to bring it back for a throwback toilet pun, you could say it's preparation H.
Oh, God. It came absolutely full flush circle there.
Exactly. So let's flush this out before we get into any more trouble. Melanie, thank you so much. This has been really cool reconnecting, and so excited about the Convoy, and it's just got such a strong mission behind it. And toilet puns are not really, really cool what you're doing. To wrap things up, it is a special episode 200 additional final thoughts, which could literally be anything, or it could be a story about your favorite toilet, whatever you want. Send us home here.
Well, I'm gonna steer clear of the toilets. I don't think I want that to become my brand, but it may be too late for that. But but I think the one piece of advice I give, just if you're in this situation, you're a business owner, you've got a side hustle, whatever it is, know your worth. I think that too many folks, when they're starting out, there's this like crippling imposter syndrome that says, why me? Why should anyone pay me? Why would I make it when so many other businesses don't? That kind of mentality will really undermine you, and you need to be the one who believes in you. So if nothing else, know your worth and keep on hustling, because the world needs your story just as much as they need the good work that you're doing.
Build the new normal. Man, you have an opportunity. You're living in this moment. If you can stay healthy, stay positive and get your bills paid, you might have an opportunity to build what the new world is going to look like. So create. This is a time to create. The number of opportunities that are emerging right now are unbelievable. And so this is a time, you don't have to let the new normal happen to you. You can build it.
Well, and again, these aren't very good, so just know that going in.
That goes without saying with dad jokes.
So what do you call a pop singer's friends?
Oh, I'm not even gonna try. Go for it.
Britney's peers.
Oh man. Wow.
Yeah.
Bravo.
I told you it's not good, but yeah, and you can edit that out. I know that was horrible. Yeah.
No, I might edit out the rest of what you said, but I'll keep that part in. All right. What is a weird talent that you have? Something that you're really good at that many people would be surprised to know. Something that has nothing to do with podcast movement.
I'm a reasonable beatboxer.
Oh, nice. Is there like a 4-second beatbox you can do for us here?
There you go.
All right. Hard to beat that. Get it? It's a beatboxing joke. Thank you so much, Melanie, Marcus, and Jared, for coming back, dropping the wisdom in episode 200. Next up, we have the return of Max B versus Max B. Max Brickman of Heartland Ventures, who is feeling a little 30 under 30 and maybe flirty as well. Following that, we have Dr. Trouble himself, Rob Fletcher, incredibly good chili sauce, who reveals a little insight into why he fits the nickname. And voices on voices on voices, and some rapping as well from the super talented Amanda Natividad and Jessica Hitchcock. Alrighty, we are back with the corniest interview possible, because the first time we did this, I just cannot let it go that we are both Max B. Max B and Max B, Max Brickman, Mr. Heartland Ventures, back for episode 200. Max, we had you on originally in episode 145 back in May 2021. How you doing? The Midwest Machine himself. Thanks for joining again today.
Thanks for having me back, a fellow Max Beer.
Oh, that is so corny.
Yeah, congrats on 200 episodes. This is terrific. I'm excited to be a part of it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, without you, it would have been 199. So I'm very, no, I really appreciate it. It's been really surreal. And I don't know if you feel this way. I kind of feel like we were just in classes at Kelly together. So I guess a few things have happened over the years, but yeah, it's been a beautiful blur.
Yeah, time has definitely flown by. Yeah, I'm excited for everything that you've done since then.
Oh, perfect. And what you do just bores me. So we're going to sign off now. No, but super cool. So back in the original interview, we talked about kind of the Heartland Venture story and your clean slate story and your endless different businesses in real estate and investing, kind of growing up and as a teenager and as you turn into a real boy. But now fast forward, and Heartland Ventures is doing super well. You're expanding your portfolio. And I want to kick off by talking about you since our last not because of, maybe in spite of the last episode we did together, have been named to Forbes 30 under 30. So congrats on that. That is incredible. That's I think something that a lot of people dream of being, and you've realized it. So that's really, really cool. How's that experience been, kind of finding out that news, and then any fallout since then?
Well, yeah, thank you. I mean, it was definitely exciting, but while those aren't the end goal by any means, when you're an entrepreneur and you're used to, putting your head down, I'd be lying if I said, being able to have some sort of reinforcement that you might be on the right track is helpful, because, it can be lonely, when you're working on something alone and you don't have a supervisor or a boss to give you that constant feedback. You have investors, but they're a bit disconnected from what you're doing on a normal day to day. And while, again, the judges are only looking at the information that's shared with them, it's still nice to be able to have that recognition. And it definitely helps, strategically, just on a fundraising side and credibility for, portfolio companies that we might be looking at investing in. So it was a great experience. I met, a ton of people through it. Obviously, during COVID, the programming is a bit different than it probably was before, but certainly a great opportunity to meet really interesting people from around the country, around the world. Yeah, it's been fun.
You're humble. You say wasn't a big goal of yours, but I remember, like, you never paid attention in class. You always drew sketches of the term 30 under 30 on your notepad. I always saw it, so I knew it was something. No, but it is, any awards like that, some people can say they're nice accolades or accolade. I always mess up that word, but what really matters is, how the business performs and all that. But no question, from a PR standpoint, like, that's one of the best wins you can have as an entrepreneur, especially being such a youngin'. But what reaction have you seen from clients and kind of potential new clients or new portfolio companies when they find out that, Heartland Ventures now is kind of 30 under 30 backed, if you will?
Yeah, the feedback from investors was definitely positive. And when you're fundraising and you're new to a new city and you're younger, there's a lot of hills you have to climb there to establish credibility. And while it's still a third party who also doesn't really know you that's vouching for you, being Forbes, it does still give a certain amount of credibility to help kind of ease some of the credibility concerns that new folks might have when you're going into a new city and when you're raising money from somebody new.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great word. Credible. That's like the stamp of credibility.
I think there are definitely a lot of other ways to establish credibility. I definitely wouldn't, I do know people that have gotten, very frustrated or upset that haven't gotten it, that have accomplished much, much more than I have. And, I think it's a bit of a coin toss, and it's a bit of focusing on maybe what they, happening to match what they want. Again, for anyone who didn't get it or who's kind of past that threshold, it's definitely not a end all be all. Again, I know tons of people who have accomplished much more that didn't get it and were upset at the time, and they got over it.
I thought every morning you wake up now and you always have stress-free days, and it's just sunshine everywhere. Sunshine everywhere. It resolves everything, right? Congrats again on that. Super cool. What else is new with Heartland Ventures? And what else in the past year since we first recorded?
Oh man.
What's the most exciting development you'd like to share?
The biggest is that we're able to share at this moment is really just the expansion. This is something where we've been starting in Indiana, expanded to Ohio, and continuing to expand beyond that. Have grown the team pretty substantially, and are continuing to grow the team. And for us, it's just exciting. For anyone who's adding employees, it's exciting. It just allows us to do a lot more and expand, what our vision is and what our model is into new markets around the Midwest. So we've been very excited to do that. And that's led up to our second fund, which, first fund, being definitely a grind to raise, $15 million fund several years ago, being able to prove that and going into fund two. The most exciting thing is all of our investors from the first fund came in for the second fund, and we were able to add in about 50 new investors in Ohio for a fund amount that we'll announce shortly, but it's many multiples of where we were in the first fund. So we're very excited to be able to have that additional capital to continue investing and continue expanding the model.
I love the endless love you and team give back to the Midwest and so many businesses that are so cool, and so many family-owned businesses in the Midwest as well. So just absolutely love what you do. Now that you're truly stepping into this next level of scaling and expanding, what's the number one thing that you think you've learned early on that has allowed you to kind of get to this next level?
It's a good question. I think communication with early stakeholders, for sure. You can't have, one-on-one meetings with every person who, is aware of what you're doing throughout the whole time, right? You're going to meet people early on who like what you're doing or who are supportive. And it's very easy for 6 months, 12 months to go by and to not have any communication or dialogue with that person. And that other person might be busy, and it's not realistic to say that you're going to get coffee with everyone you've ever met every 3 or 6 months to stay in contact with them. So what we've really focused on doing is, good outward communication, having very regular stakeholder updates every month, emails that are, very targeted to all the people that we've met with in the past, updating them on what we're doing, not necessarily asking anything, not requesting time from them, but just sort of briefing them on things that were relevant maybe to the conversation that, we initially had. Keeping those relationships warm and evolving has allowed for, as years have gone on, to build rapport with those folks, so that now when fund two comes along, I feel like I still know these people. They feel like they've gotten to know me over the last few years. And it becomes much easier to engage them for maybe to invest, or maybe a referral for someone that we're looking to hire, or an introduction, or whatever it might be. So I think just keeping a database of all of the people you've met and keeping them engaged somehow in a way that doesn't require a lot of their time, being conscious very much of their time, at least I try to be, of our investors' time, has really helped build our network and allowed us to scale.
All Max Bs are great communicators. That's what I always say. That's what I've always learned as well. But Max, congrats again on all the success and the newer growth since we first spoke. Super exciting, and Forbes again, super, super cool. Thanks again for coming back on. And to wrap us up here, a special episode 200 edition of Final Thoughts, which is it has to be exactly 200 syllable. No, I'm just kidding. No, it could be whatever you want. Just send us home here.
Honestly, congratulations to you. This is terrific. I've been a regular listener before and since I've been on the show. I've loved being on it. I've learned a ton from it. So I appreciate the opportunity to be involved, and really congratulations.
What is the hottest pepper that you have ever eaten personally?
So I'll tell you a story. I was in a shop in our local city, Harare, one day, and an Indian guy was standing next to me at the counter, and he found out that I was the maker of Dr. Trouble, and he said to me, "Well, would you like to try a cashew nut?" So I looked at him suspiciously, and I said, "Show me your cashew nuts." And he brought me a packet of cashew nuts, which looked suspiciously dusted with something. I licked my pinky and I touched it on a cashew nut and tried it. And I immediately detected the Carolina Reaper.
Oh, no.
So I didn't partake of the cashew nut. I had a giggle and I said, "I know what you're trying to do." I said, "But will you please give me a packet of your cashew nuts?" And I then took the long journey back to the foothills of the Zambezi Valley, got back to the farm, and my amazing wife, Lucy, who basically does everything which makes Dr. Trouble a business, was sitting at her computer, and I pretended to be chewing with an open packet of cashew nuts, and I walked in, and she loves cashew nuts, and I said, "You want a cashew nut?" And so without looking up from the screen, she put her hands in the packet and put 2 or 3 cashew nuts in her mouth. Then my children and I broke out into giggles because about 3 minutes later, my beautiful wife was standing in the garden with a 2-liter bottle of milk, pouring it
Oh my God.
into her mouth and calling me all kinds of names.
I see where Dr. Trouble comes from now.
I do a lot of weird voices for my kid. He likes that a lot.
Can you please go on?
I don't know why I do it, but when we're doing puzzles together and if the puzzle pieces don't fit, I start doing this like little voice that's like, "Oh no, that doesn't work." Oh.
Oh my God. That's the stuff of either nightmares or dream. I don't even know.
Nightmares.
But that's nightmares. But that's
Yeah,
the stuff
that's
of PBR
nightmare fuel.
tweets. That's amazing. I can picture the puzzle pieces too. That's a little too vivid.
A little bit too much, yeah. But my kid loves it. He cracks up every time. So obviously I keep doing it. That's one. So maybe that's one of the Quirk's weird talents. I could do a couple of little weird.
Yeah,
voices.
it kind of blends a little bit. Like, do you have names for these voices? Is there a second one that's like a stark difference from that?
Oh, there is another one. I feel like I used to have little characters for them, but I don't remember what his character was anymore. But it was like, I don't know. I think I called it like old timey newspaper boy, and it was sort of like, "Oh, come on, guys, come on."
I love that one. That's amazing. Oh shucks. Oh my God.
Oh shucks. Come on, everyone. Will you buy a paper from me? Come on.
I can do the voice of Lois Griffin from Family Guy.
No way. You can't. All right.
Yeah.
You take as much time as you want, but you have to do that right now.
Come on, Peter. What color's a fire truck? Oh, that's right, Peter. They are red.
Oh my God. That's odd. That's such a hard voice to do. I've never heard anybody do that. Wow. Congrats. Are you Alex? Are you the actual voice of her? Yeah, Alex Borstein.
Yeah, I'm also Alex Borstein. No, I didn't even have to practice that. It was like one day I just wanted to talk like Lois. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I was for Halloween one year, I was Lois.
While watching Die Hard.
Yeah, while watching Die Hard. But no, I was her for Halloween one year. And it was like the whole night I just talked like her. And by the end of the night, my throat was hurting pretty bad. But
You need some water.
yeah, I needed water.
That's amazing. I grew up on Family Guy, so this is a dream come true. All right, so what's the next? I'm sure the next one will be even better. But what's the next?
Do you remember TLC, their song Waterfalls?
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
You do a TLC impression too?
Well, Lisa Left Eye Lopez, she had a verse in there that she would sing. And my younger self, like, spent so much time in my bedroom listening to that CD to learn that whole verse that she has so that I can rap it. And as an adult, I love it for karaoke. Like, So I can sing that whole verse that Lisa Left Eye Lopez does in the Waterfalls song.
Oh my God. Are you up for it? Well, actually, are you up for doing it in the Lois Griffin? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, that would be super tough.
Are you up for it, or at least a few lines of it?
Yeah, I mean, I could do the whole thing. Yeah, let me get a sip of water.
Go for it. Yeah. Take as many sips of that waterfall as you want.
Nice. Okay. I seen a rainbow yesterday, but too many storms that come and gone, leaving a trace of not one God-given ray. Is it because my life is 10 shades of gray? I pray all 10 fade away, seldom praising for the sunny days. And like his promise is true, only my faith can undo the many chances I blew to bring my life to a new, clear blue and unconditional skies have dried the tears from my eyes, no more lonely cries. My only bleeding hope is for the folk who can't cope with such an adoring pain that it keeps them in the pouring rain. Who's to blame for tooting Cain into your own vein? What a shame you shoot a name for someone else's brain. You claim the insane and name this day and time. For fall to prey to crime, I say the system's got you victim to your own mind. Dreams are hopeless aspirations and hopes are coming true. Believe in yourself. The rest is up to me and you.
Whoa.
End scene.
Oh my God. All right.
My younger self would just thank me like, you remembered it.
Okay. I am consistently amazed by voices and impressions, and the entrepreneurship tips aren't too shabby as well. Thank you so much, Max B. Again, incredible name. Rob Fletcher, Dr. Trouble, also incredible name. And Amanda and Jessica for going wild for the Wild Business Growth Podcast. Now, as J. Cole once said, if you made it this far, I really fuck with you. This is the grand finale, the final batch of specialties for the episode 200 special. We have the returning guest, the one and only Caitlin Brower, sterling social media star and football/wine/Real Housewife fan herself, who puts me to the test about my Real Housewives knowledge, which is about negative. After that, we have Jerry Miller from FarmersOnly.com sharing the story behind that famous and infamous FarmersOnly.com commercial. MLB umpire Tim Timmons with a good story that will make you chuckle. And finally, we wrap up with Nancy Cartwright, the voice of Bart Simpson and Friends, who does what she does best in the Simpsons Wild Business Growth Podcast crossover, Don't Have a Cow Man. Alrighty, we are back again with Caitlin Brower, the social media superstar from Sterling. That's a lot of S's. Who is back? We go way back from that tweet back in 2018 that connected us. But this is a special episode 200 edition. And Caitlin, you were back. You were on for the full interview back in episode 132. You had just turned age 2, which is crazy. And it was in February 2021. Wow. Holy cow. Here we are again. Thank you so much for joining and kind of putting up with me for all these years.
No, absolutely. And honestly, it's been a pleasure to get to know you, online through Twitter, LinkedIn, all the fun to do through your podcast, over the past couple of years. I'm so happy to be back. I know you're celebrating a milestone, so it's very, very cool to be here and to be a part of that.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate it. So this is like 200th to the 200th power, because obviously this live as we speak, this is episode 200 for Wild Business Growth Podcast. And we alluded to it and spoke a little bit about it in your interview back in episode 132. But, in addition to all the social media and marketing and stuff you do for, your full-time job, you have an awesome show that you do live, you do video, you do podcasts called The Real Football Fans of New Jersey, which I always joke about because it's amazing because I know so much about football and so little about Real Housewives. So it's kind of a mix of everything, but who doesn't love glasses of wine? You guys mix that in as well, no pun intended. But you were celebrating recently getting to episode 200 for that as well. So congrats. We got 200s all around, 200 so 200 congratulations for you on that front as well.
No, I appreciate it. It was such a great milestone for me and my co-host, Katie, to get to. We've been doing this for over 4 years now. And it just was so awesome to finally hit, hitting 100 was super fun. 200 was even better. So just to be able to hop on, and she's my best friend. Like that's always the cool side of it too. So my co-host is my best friend. So just what we deliver to our audience, the most unique thing is like, if you were to look at our text messages just every day to each other, it all is football and housewives. And now you're just kind of getting that behind the scenes view of what we're talking about every single day together.
Yeah. And it's really, and I love that. Like, if you watch your show or you listen to your show, like it really, you feel the passion and like the history of two friends just kind of going back and forth, but with like the latest current topics, and it's areas you're super passionate about. So it's really fun. It's like no question that you guys pick topics that you're interested about and want to kind of do for the long run in the first place. But as I know, as many people know, it takes a ton of grit and time and effort, especially when it's on top of your full-time job to get to that level. So congrats again for that. And I guess my biggest question for you as a 200 elder, we'll call you, is what advice do you have for anybody that wants to start a podcast somewhere in a space that maybe it's sports, maybe it's a TV show, maybe just somewhere in a space it's really not their day job, but they want to, continue it to the lengths that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. And, we kind of look back on it. We laugh about it. Our first episode, over 4 years ago was a Facebook Live video. Actually, this wasn't a podcast to begin with, but we had just been told by friends and family, like, you guys should really start a show. Like, you should start a podcast. So we really took that, in stride and really made it what it is today. My biggest recommendation is that, this shouldn't be a job for you. There's so much work that goes in behind the scenes. There really is, but you should be passionate about it and you should be excited to show up daily if that's what you choose to do for a podcast. If you do it, ours is weekly. We give about an hour's worth of content every week. So it might be time consuming, but it's so much fun. Like I said, I'm sitting down with my best friend once a week. I mean, we're talking every single day, but just once a week, we're recording ourselves talking and we're talking about things that we love. We're really trying to, peel back the layers on so many things, while the Housewives is kind of more fun, a little cheeky, things like that. Football, we're doing like high-end analysis, like from end to end, everything in regards to football, the NFL, college, things like that. So if anything, we're really trying to make a name for ourselves there, but you can truly hear the passion behind what we're talking about and everything like that. And we just enjoy reading up on this stuff, watching football games, watching the Housewives on TV. So if you want to start a podcast, that's great. Or if you want to start a live series on social media, I encourage it. The more creators out there, the better. We're not competing against each other. I mean, if you want to look at like the top list on like Apple Podcast, of course, that's a competition. But at the end of the day, we can all learn so much from each other. So go out and make it. There's no true competition, but make it something that you love, you enjoy. Because to me, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many viewers, subscribers we have. What is successful for me and my co-host Katie is that we're doing something that we actually love and that we're genuinely passionate about.
And you could tell from listening and watching that you guys actually hate football. You hate Real Housewives. It's like it's just like a slog to get through it every week. So it's really depressing, actually. But besides episode 200 though, and I totally agree with all that advice. I think that the love and passion, and wow, this is getting very deep, but you need that if you're doing something that that takes the consistency and effort and ambition that podcasting does. Which of your episodes, besides of course episode 100, episode 200, which has been, would you say, the most memorable / fun to date?
We're getting more into like having guests on. So obviously for, 200 episodes, not all 200, it's a lot of, me and Katie talking to each other, really just because that's where the banter comes from. That's where the analysis. We both have very different opinions on things. Like that's where it's like we're almost each other's guests week after week. But we really are dabbling into more, having external guests on. So every time we've had one has been absolutely great. But we actually had former New York Giant Will Blackman on our episode I want to say it was right before 200 because that really helped us amp up our efforts for 200. And it was so awesome to not only have someone like that agree to come on, and it was an organic like relationship, like us on Twitter. That's how I met him. I met him through Giants Twitter and everyone talking about and building that community. And he had found out we had a podcasts about football, wine, and housewives. He actually likes watching that with his wife. So it just kind of like the stars aligned, and it was really cool to have him on. And I'm really happy that we did. We got a lot of behind the scenes of being an NFL player, playing for the New York Giants, during a stretch where they went to that Super Bowl. Eli Manning was his quarterback. So a really cool time, if you are a true Giants fan. And he talked about some other experiences too. He was on a couple other teams. So really getting that. And he was just hands down a genuine person. So it was really exciting just to talk to him for I think we talked to him for 30 minutes or so. So I'll always remember that episode. Just really, really cool for us. Good milestone for the two of us for the show, but also too, just being able to have that experience to sit down with someone like that.
People in this space like you and me, or I would say people who are non-NFL players, the thought of speaking to an NFL player is
right.
Or any professional athlete is out of this world. And then when you actually speak to them, it's wait, is this actually happening? And I think more often than not, the more you talk to them, they're just normal people. It's they happen to do that for a living, but so down to earth. And that was an all-time episode. So not a surprise you chose that one. So speaking of milestones, in honor of Wild Business Growth, episode 200 meets episode 200 plus of the Real Football Fans of New Jersey, RFFNJ for short. We only thought it was right to do a special game of two truths and a lie. And the background of this is, as I mentioned, I know a ton about football. Caitlin knows a ton about football. Caitlin knows a ton about Real Housewives, all the Real Housewives. I know absolutely zero about Real Housewives. So Caitlin was kind enough to organize a few batches of two truths and a lie, and I'm going to attempt to guess which one is the lie. And I have never been more nervous and unprepared in my life. I did not prepare for this at all. So I haven't watched Real Housewives in years, just in preparation for this. So Caitlin, take it away, and you are the Jeopardy / Wheel of Fortune / Deal or No Deal host, etc. Take it away.
All right. So basically, like what Max had just said, so it's two truths and a lie. That's kind of it. But I'll call it two truthful scenarios and one lie scenario. So I did it in 3 batches. So basically what I did was I picked scenarios that have happened through the Housewives, multiple franchises throughout the years. There's 2 true ones and there's 1 false one in each section. So let's go with the first batch. So I'll just read them in no particular order, obviously. First scenario, a New Jersey cast member got so furious at one of her co-stars that she flipped an entire dinner table at a very nice restaurant. Scenario number 2, there is a fish room at one of the New York cast members' vacation homes that everyone refuses to sleep in. And scenario number 3, a group of cast members from Atlanta were kicked out of the Georgia Dome after a physical altercation. Which one's the lie?
This is already way more difficult than I planned. I think I'm going to edit in the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire music, intense music before.
That would be good.
I'm just stalling right now. I'm gonna guess the fish room. I think fish and sleeping. I don't know. I feel like it's just that's my guess of the lie. How did I do?
You are wrong. The fish room is a huge story. Yeah, it is a huge storyline on the Real Housewives of New York. It actually is Dorinda Medley's vacation home in the Berkshires.
I knew. If you told me it was Dorinda, I would have known.
Yeah, she has a whole room that is just dedicated to fish on the wall, and people get very, very sassy about sleeping in this room. So.
Okay, I would sleep in that room. I'm just gonna venture out and say that.
I would too. Yes. So. All right. So second group of scenarios here. The FBI boarded a Sprinter van in Salt Lake City looking for one of the women to take her into police custody. Multiple cast members of the Real Housewives of Dallas over the years have been trained horse/bull riders at rodeos. And the final scenario is the New York women were on a yacht that almost sank due to rough waters and weather. All was captured on film.
I'm actually going with the second one again. I feel like horse and bull riders. I almost said horse and buggy. Horse and bull riders. I don't know. Something about that, pun intended, just seems a little fishy. So how did I do with that one?
I love how you pulled fishy in from the first one, but you are correct. That is the lie.
All right,
yes.
cool.
So,
50%. That was about my GPA in high school anyway.
I think, I don't know, who knows? Dallas had a couple of seasons. Maybe one of the women was, but the key was that I pulled up multiple people. So definitely not
okay.
many women were doing that in Dallas.
That's very advanced. Very advanced. All right. And now for the moment everyone has been waiting for, the third batch of scenarios.
Third batch. All right. So let's start with the first one. So 2 members of the Washington, D.C. cast snuck past all security and got into an exclusive White House party and were eventually caught and put on trial. Second scenario, and this is more just kind of like high level scenario. There are currently 5 OG franchises running, 2 unknown that have unknown futures, and 5 brand new franchises. And then the third scenario is a member of Beverly Hills is currently under fire for potentially knowing her ex-husband embezzled money from plane crash victims.
Wow, that got deep very quick. that got intense.
No, it is a little dark. Yes.
All right. Well, I'm gonna. This is very original. I'm gonna go with the second one again, just because there's so many numbers in there that I'm like, this would be very easy for Caitlin to slightly change one of these numbers. So that's my guess. But I'm stumped across the board.
So you are correct. The second one
Wow,
is the
okay,
lie.
all right. Up to a D average, almost D plus. Okay.
Yeah. So the biggest kicker here is the brand new franchises. There's actually only, if you really want to, there's only 3 brand new running ones right now. So
I knew it.
But that just goes to show you how much of housewives there are. If there's 5 running right now that are OGs, like they've been around forever, 2 might come back, they might not, and then you've got 3 that are like current and new. So
wow,
a lot going on in housewives world, but you can see that these scenarios, though, the ones that I did are true. A lot.
I guess my biggest question is it a requirement for every season of any Real Housewives to have people getting arrested, people getting in fights, and people not sleeping in a certain animal theme room?
I think so. It's, you have to bring the drama, and Bravo only goes after the women that are going to bring the hardcore drama to the show. So,
well, Caitlin, bravo to you. Thank you so much for organizing these, and I think you have an additional career on top of everything as a TV trivia host. So they'd be lucky to have you on any of the 70 million franchises. But Caitlin, all in all, thank you so much for coming on to celebrate episode 200 and celebrate your episode 200 as well. And this was extra special. Sending the best to you. Looking forward to more and more real football fans of New Jersey, and I actually know quite a bit about the franchise now. I don't know how that happened, but last thing here, final thoughts, episode 200 edition. It could be a line, it could be kind of a quote from any figure in Real Housewives history, or player on the Giants, whatever you want. Send us home here.
No, I mean, honestly, well, first and foremost, congratulations on 200th episodes. It's such an epic milestone. And I know, you're doing it about it's not like every single day. So you're getting some really good, solid content out there for your audience, frequently. So good for you. So happy that I've been a part of this journey with you. And I don't know what to leave off with. I know we're a football podcast, but I'm really excited for the Giants this season. So
oh my God, here we go.
I think it'll
my fiance Dana is going to be very excited. We got a Giants plug in here. Here we go.
So I think they will be really good. So, maybe I'll go above 500, maybe 9 wins for the Giants. So I'll sign off with that. So coming into the 2022 season.
How many sacks for Thibodeau? That's the last question.
Oof. Let's see 5 or 6 from him.
All right, 5.5. Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, Caitlin. Means a ton. And I'll see you at the next party celebrating Real Housewives.
All right. Thank you.
This is a crazy story, really. I said I gotta do a commercial for Farmers Only. I driving down the road, I see a farm, right? Okay. I pull in, go down a long gravel road. I pull in, and a guy comes out, and who's this stranger driving down my long driveway, right? Comes out, started talking to him and started telling him how I just started a site for farmers dating. He goes, well, I've been married for a while now. And his wife came out. They were a younger couple, middle age. And all of a sudden it hit me. They had this big farm land with corn crops that were just harvested. So they were all just cut down. Off the cuff, I just said, hey, could your wife walk through the cornfields acting like she's lonely? Okay.
As any random person who shows up to a house unannounced would ask.
Right. I mean, can you imagine this situation? I go, it was just a thought. I just visualized it. She was attractive. And so I taped her, filmed her walking through the cornfield, and she's just holding some of the crops in her hand and just kind of like dazed off looking at the sky. Then after I got done, I go, thank you so much, and blah, blah, blah. And then I said, do you know anybody around here that has horses? And he goes, yeah, old Bill up the hill, he's got some horses, right? I drove up the hill and found his horse, his farm. I pull in, again, total stranger. Okay. I said, hey, I explained my story. I said, I'm putting together a TV commercial for farmers only. It's dating for farmers, blah, blah, blah. I said, can I get you to, I want to film your horse like he's talking. Like, you're too young, but there is a TV show called Mr. Ed.
Yeah, well, the talking horse, right?
Yeah, right. I said, I want to shoot, your horse with a camera, right? So we got some peanut butter and put it on his gums, and he started yapping away, right? And I filmed a lot of different angles, and then I said, what about, can I get your dog doing the same thing? So we did it to the dog. Again, thanks. So I got this footage. I put together this commercial. First of all, I took this footage. I went into the production studio. The production studio said, Jerry, we can't use this. This is terrible. It's low quality. It was handheld. I didn't even have a tripod. It was like the original shaky cam. It's like now top Hollywood producers use the shaky cam look, right?
To look cool. You're ahead of your time.
So it was like it was low res, bad quality for television, shaky cam, and on and on. But this commercial, I put it together, and I'm telling you, for a few $100s, and it went viral.
This is a bit vulgar, but I'll tell the story.
We're explicit. You're welcome to.
Okay. I was working the plate one time. The only person that I can remember, I'm positive it was Lloyd McClendon was the manager. I'm umpiring the plate, the catcher's there, and I forget who the hitter was, but the hitter got in the box. He took a pitch and he's grinning, and I called it a ball, or no, I called it a strike, and he's grinning. I'm like, what in the hell? And about that time, the catcher just starts shaking his head, and the catcher goes, what in holy hell? What in? And he stands up, and about that time, the guy had walked into the box and he had farted, and it was horrendous. So now the catcher stands up and he turns around and he looks at me, and I look at the catcher, and I just back up and I put my hands up, and the hitter's got his face down and his hand over his mouth. I mean, it may look like to the manager that the hitter's upset about the pitch, and Lloyd is holding his hands up in the dugout, and he starts to walk out towards home plate, which you can't argue balls and strikes. And I got my mask on. I'm like, oh my God. And I look up and I see Lloyd, and Lloyd goes, what in the hell's going on? I go, your boy farted. He just turns around and he goes, yes, he's doing it in the dugout too.
Oh my God.
Bart's the easiest for me. He's the easiest one. Like just talking to you, Max, I could very easily just slip into Bart's voice, and there you go, man. Dude, Max, I can't believe that I'm on your podcast. Dude, this is amazing. Whoa, mama. It's like he is easy. I had to get into Nelson. Well, I could get into him too, but I don't know how long I could sustain this. Do you know what I mean? Ha ha! So there you go. That's a little bit of A Simpson Sampler by Nancy Cartwright. We don't want to leave out this little fella. Max, hey, just curious, is your name really Maxtone? Or is it Maxfield? Or Maxograph? Like, what's your real name?
I am speechless, unspeechless. Thank you so much, Caitlin. Thank you so much, Jerry. Thank you so much, Tim. Thank you so much, Nancy and Bart and everyone else. And thank you to all of those guests and wild listeners and friends and family and beyond, and everybody who has made the Wild Business Growth Podcast more wild and more special than ever over these past 100 and past 200 episodes. If you want to hear more wild stories like this one, including the episode 100 special, make sure to follow the Wild Business Growth Podcast on your favorite podcast app and tell a friend about it. Just tell one friend or one family member about the podcast who you know isn't a listener. I'm sure there's something in here that they'll be like, oh, that's okay. You can also find us on Good Pods, where there are fantastic podcasts and podcast recommendations. You can learn more about podcast production at MaxPodcasting.com. And while you're there, scroll down, sign up for the Podcasting for the Max newsletter, a great mix of podcasting tips, behind the scenes, and lessons from Wild Business Growth Podcast. And puns. Who doesn't like puns? Even Punxsutawney Phil even likes puns. Thanks again for listening and being so damn dashing. Until next time, let your business run wild.
Bring on the bongos!